Good morning, and thank you for joining us on the alphabetmanlive.com, and I am the Alphabet Man. So I want to jump in here because there's so much to say today. First, I want to just remind everybody that Tom Dunn from Through the Black, he does a show with Jared Cressman. Through the Black host Tom Dunn will be here live in the studio tomorrow morning. So you want to tune in for that. That's going to be awesome because he's also not just a host and a producer and a director but he is also on Russ Disdar's team, the team that rescues victims of sex trafficking. So also reminder about the OSA event. I don't know exactly what day I'll be speaking. I'm going to speak with Jason Storm today. And Wednesday the 17th, right? Yeah. That's the
I got the schedule. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So Wednesday the 17th. Hold on. I'm sorry. Wednesday the 18th. Wednesday is the 18th. So Wednesday the 18th is when I'll be speaking. So I will definitely be there on Wednesday. I don't know how many days we're going to be there, but we will be there. It's the OSA event. It's their national gathering, and it is in Indianapolis, and it starts the 14th, I believe, through the 21st, from Saturday to Saturday.
Yes.
So, all right. And so you can go to the Operation Save America website for that info as well. And I was blessed yesterday to spend the day with Coach Dave and his family, and so that was amazing for his daughter's gender reveal, which was nice to see because nowadays people think that the gender is assigned by the doctor or by the parents or is later decided by the child, and so to see people know that you're either male or female. And that's that. It's nice to be around those types of people. Yesterday, I was talking to Jared about how this perversion, the LGBT perversion, has really corrupted everybody. It's everybody that I came into contact with in my old life was under this perversion. And no matter what the perversion was to begin with for them, it always got darker and deeper. And, we were talking about these, there's so many pastors and so many police and judges and lawyers and politicians and all these people who are being found guilty and exposed for engaging in homosexual activity, in the perversion of homosexuality. There's a one pastor, pastor number one, Jared, a short video about this one. This one is pretty, this is just his explanation of what he was caught doing is pretty amazing. You could go ahead, Jared.
I'm Paul Martino. The pastor at the Waterfront Christian Community Church in West Homestead has been charged with engaging in lewd behavior with a man inside a car on a public road. Tonight, he's denying those charges. Amy Wattis spoke with him in an exclusive interview. Amy, what do you have?
Well, good evening, Paul. Pastor George Gregory is accused of engaging in lewd behavior inside of his car late last night in New Homestead. Someone saw the alleged behavior, then called 911. When police arrived, they say they found two men in a car on Beachland Street. Inside, police spotted a man in the front seat completely naked and bound with nylon rope. Police say Gregory was in the back seat. When police asked Gregory what was going on, they say he told them, quote, "We were just playing." The man in the front passenger seat told police the behavior going on inside of the car was consensual. Police questioned Gregory some more. They say he stated, quote, "They meet up from time to time to play with each other." Police told Gregory he was on a public street in clear view of several homes, and police say Gregory replied by saying, quote, "I know." We went to Gregory's home, and he says the police have it all wrong. Were you in the car with someone else?
I was counseling a young man with a drug problem, okay? And
with his clothes off.
It did turn strange, but it wasn't my doing, okay?
The devil made me do
and
it.
I was adamant that I'm not participating in that way, okay? And so that's when the police pulled up and they assumed things, but I'm standing by my story. It's not true. But I will deny on a stack of Bibles with God as my witness that I did nothing.
The fire chief with West Homestead says that Waterfront Christian Community Church has rented from the department for about 5 years now. That's the only affiliation that they have. No one from the congregation is a member of that fire department. Now,
the building, they made sure they made a public statement that we have nothing to do with that church. You know, and I laugh because I laugh at that man for thinking that nobody truly sees it, that anyone is believing it. You see his wife standing in the background, and she's just standing there looking at him, and you can look in her eyes and tell that she knows what he was doing in that car with that man. She knows what he was doing, but she's going to stand by her man. And I kind of take note to his characteristics and his mannerisms, and especially in his teaching. He seems like he's a little soft, and so, you know, and maybe that has something to do with it. But he's caught in the car naked with a man, and he says that he was counseling him. He was counseling him. The man was on drugs, and things got a little sketchy. They got a little weird. But I didn't participate. And like Pastor Dale just said, he says that's what you call the naked truth. It's ridiculous. I'm telling you, it's madness. And then, you know, that now, so who's to say that man didn't originally come to him for some counseling? Or who's to say that man wasn't put in his path so that he could receive some type of guidance? But this man took advantage of his authority. And so then we could go to Pastor 2. Pastor number 2 is was a deputy, a sheriff's deputy, and a pastor. He became the chaplain, and then he used his authority to engage in sexual activity with male inmates. So let's go down on. It's just an article. It's not a video. Hold on. Matthew Eli Mellerson, 29, a deputy with the Richmond City Sheriff's Office and also the chaplain at the Justice Center. It was indicted by a grand jury Thursday on 6 counts of carnal knowledge of an inmate and 2 counts of sexual abusing an inmate. The alleged incidents occurred in 2017, according to court documents. Officials said Mellerson is on leave pending the outcome of the allegations. He's on leave. That man right there. That man who is taking on the position and the role of a pastor, who is answering the call, or is he, or has he truly been called? Right, Pastor Dale, or is he just want that position so that he can do exactly what he did? You know, when I was talking to Jared about this yesterday, he said, well, you know, how deep is that? Well, it's very deep, because let me tell you something. My first time in the adult county jail, about 3 o'clock in the morning, my cell door slid open and in came an officer, and he threw a couple packs of cigarettes on my bunk. He unzipped and he said, "Get to work." And he's not the only officer that did that. He was the first in the county jail, but he wasn't the last. There were quite a few, even in prison. There were quite a few officers that said, well, you know, why don't you just take care of me? Because I'm wearing this badge, and it would be best for you to do so. And so there are men out there, and women too, I'm sure, that take advantage of the authority that they have. And you know, I remember getting picked up one night by the police on the street. A detective, he was going to bust me, and then he decided, well, I won't bust you if you do this for me. And so I did it because I didn't want to go to jail. You know, when I was in the county jail, I did it because I didn't want a hard time. When I was in prison, I did it because I didn't want to cause any waves any more than I would already have, any more of a hard time than I would already have. And so these men participated in sexual acts with this pastor, chaplain, deputy because of his authority. And so we look at how judges and lawyers and politicians, the police and everybody, how this perversion is taking over. We look at what we read yesterday about the judges that are giving their children over to their father's custody, knowing that the fathers are raping them. But why? Because the judges are guilty of the same crime. There is no judge in his right mind or in the right standing with God that would ever hand a child over to anyone who is molesting them or abusing them unless they're guilty of the same thing. Maybe they haven't crossed the line yet. Maybe it's just a thought. But they're going to cross the line. There was a Supreme Judge in Australia that threw out the case of a father molesting his 8-year-old daughter because he said there's really no difference in an adult-child relationship than there is in a male-male or woman-woman relationship. You know, can we go to that last day's article? All I want to touch on today is the perversion and what it leads to. The perversion and how dark and deep it gets. The lesbian who murdered her former lover's daughter, the daughter was 2 years old, and then she attempted to kill the 10-year-old son. She left a note explaining she was inspired to do it by a sermon in the homosexual church. 2 weeks ago, the report said that a Florida mental health counselor accused of murdering her lesbian lover's 2-year-old daughter wrote a note claiming a sermon by a lesbian pastor. Those words don't even go together. By a lesbian false teacher inspired the killing. Kimberly Lucas, 40 years old, accused of drowning her former lesbian partner, Jacqueline Jamison's 2-year-old daughter, Ileana, and then attempting, all right, and then attempting to kill her 10-year-old son, Ethan. Lucas wrote in the note that a sermon by the Metropolitan Community Church lesbian false teacher, Leah Brown, really, really touched her the day before the revenge killing carried out in response to Jamison ending their relationship. Metropolitan Community Church is a homosexual denomination. I guess if denominations are separations, then I guess homosexuality is a separation, but it's not just separation amongst men. Homosexual denomination will be a separation from Christ Almighty. That twist scripture to fit a homosexual Christianity, whose God is friendly to homosexual acts. It pleases me to see that God is in all lowercase letters, because that is who they worship, the God of this world. Cops were called to Lucas's Jupiter, Florida home for a reported drowning. They found Ileana Lucas Jamison dead. Footage of the sermon posted by the church on YouTube shows Brown, the lesbian false teacher, mention a specific Bible passage, Genesis 22, where God asks Abraham to kill his son Isaac. Lord have mercy. That's the murdered little girl. That's Ileana. Ileana is safe right now, safe in the arms, safe in the arms of the Lord. But Ileana's brother is still faced and living with a mother who identifies as a lesbian and is going to go into another lesbian relationship. And he's going to be faced with even more tragedy, because how many men that are guilty of homosexuality does Lucas's, what's his name, Lucas? No, that was her name. How many homosexual men?
Ethan, yeah.
Yeah, how many homosexual men is Ethan going to come into contact with because mommy wants to be a lesbian, because mommy was obviously in a normal, natural relationship in order to have children. But mommy got her feelings hurt, and so mommy decided, well, I'm just going to rebel against nature and I'm going to go lay with a woman. Consistent with her homosexual church, which twists the Bible. Lucas heard the voice of their twisted God ordering her to kill the children of her former lesbian partner as a sacrifice. Lucas then attempted to kill Jamison's son, and that was unsuccessful. Police say Lucas and Jamison had recently ended their relationship. It's not a relationship, it's just a perversion. They're both licensed mental health counselors. They're the ones that are counseling your children. These lesbian, one is now a murderer, the other one is just off, but these are the ones that are telling your children that it's natural and normal. And they're telling your little boys that jacking off is normal too. At any age. Oh yeah, it's okay to explore that. It's normal. Go ahead, Jared.
Yeah, and with that, just so we fully understand what's happening here, not only are they the mental health counselors, the people who would say this is wrong are not allowed to counsel out of it any longer. Not so it's it's twice as bad as we think it is.
That's right. See, I've never been one to promote conversion therapy because Jesus is conversion therapy. However, I sure don't want to see anyone's right taken from them in opposition to this movement, to this perversion. So do I think that conversion therapy should have a right to voice there is another way, there is an opposite, you don't have to be that way? Absolutely. Do I think that conversion therapy is a way out of darkness? Honestly, no. I think that when you're set free by a therapy or by a step program, or you're set free by a ministry or a self-help book or a pastor, then the Son hasn't set you free and you are not free indeed. However, I know that there should be options, because who's to say that somebody couldn't find out there is another way and then go in search of the true way? And so, yeah, it should be, everybody should have a right including those who want to promote conversion therapy, because the homosexuals have a right to disprove it. Homosexuals have the right to tell children, this 10-year-old boy that's expected to survive, his mommy has the right to tell him, as a counselor, just as a mental health counselor, not even as his mother, but as a licensed mental health counselor, she has the right to tell him that homosexuality is normal, it's natural. There's no way out of it, and there is no such thing as becoming unhomosexual. And we know that to be a lie from the pits of hell, because there's too many of us out there that prove the fact that homosexuality is a sin, that it is a perversion, and that it can be done away with and pushed away, and you can be cleansed from it, and you can be set free, but the only freedom comes in Jesus Christ.
David?
Yes.
You know, it's the facts on the table are this. The lies have garnered and gained protected status. The truth, the ability to speak the truth, has been criminalized. And Florida is one of the main proponents of this. Back in 1982, I remember reading in a newspaper, and I remember the year because of circumstances of what was going on with our family. But in 1982, a Florida judge actually in his ruling stated, I would rather turn over custody of children, young children, to a sexually abusive father than to turn them over to the danger of being raised by a born-again Christian mother.
Lord have mercy. Lord have mercy. Jared, can we go to the anti-child abuse link? Lord have mercy. You know what, Larry? And that's happening all over our country right now. Not that one right. No, not that one right there. Sorry. What I'm trying to do is show you how people are gaining positions of power or authority, and they're abusing it, or they're only gaining it for the purpose of abusing it. A head of a prominent charity that campaigns against child abuse is arrested for trying to arrange to rape multiple children as young as 2 years old. Joel Davis, 22 years old, arrested in New York on Tuesday. This was last week. Last week. So arrested on child sex abuse charges. He's the chairman of the International Campaign to Stop Rape and Gender Violence in Conflict, an organization devoted to ending sexual violence. He is accused of trying to set up sexual encounters between himself and children as young as 2 years old. He also allegedly solicited an undercover FBI agent to send sexually explicit videos of young children. Let me go down a little bit, Jared. The head of the charity that campaigns against sexual violence has been arrested for child porn and allegedly trying to meet. So let's leave the allegedly out. And for trying to meet with children as young as 2 years old for sex. But that's what he was arrested for. How many children has he engaged in sex with? How many children has Joel Davis, 22 years old? He's a kid. And he's already so perverted and so sick and so possessed that he's already going for he's at the rock bottom already, and he's trying to dig even deeper. The New Yorker was arrested on Tuesday on child sex abuse and child pornography charges. Oh, Lord have mercy. If we can go down, I want everybody to see his picture, his face, because he is 22 years old and he is raping babies. And I don't mean children, I mean babies as young as 2 years old for what he's been caught. What hasn't he been caught for? Yeah, he has ties to Disney. Exactly. Thank you, Steve. He does. He has to go. If we can go down, Jared, he has ties to Disney. He's wearing the new symbol for pedophiles. I hope it's in this article. Keep going down. He wears this new symbol. It's the rainbow ears. It's the little Mickey Mouse ears, but it's done in a rainbow, and that's said to be the new or the latest, which is probably not now. It's probably been changed. So it's the new or the latest symbol for pedophiles. That's what they're wearing because Disney is selling them. Disney is selling them. Oh, love. It's love, right? Yeah, love. There's where you can get your rainbow Mickey Mouse ears at Disney to show your pride. That's going to come before your fall. And he wore those Mickey Mouse ears and he showed his pride, and now he's falling. And when they put him in general population, he'll be falling even more and doing all types of things maybe he don't want to do. Maybe he does want to do them. Who knows? But he's going to be doing them whether he wants to or not. Yeah, can we go to either one of the other links? Yeah, it doesn't even matter. Yeah, foster parent. Okay, now this one was just recently. I talked about this one. Foster parent charged that their 5-year-old dies from severe injuries. Now, the homosexual couple, the two men that the state handed over a little boy that they killed. He died from severe injuries. He had burns, or no, he had scars on his genitals. But they said that they were wrestling, and that's how he died, because of wrestling. Well, one of them was arrested, but the state hands him over. The state hands that 5-year-old baby over to these homosexuals, to two men that are living together, and the one is wrestling with him. Wrestling with him, and from wrestling with him, he not only died, but he has scars on his genitals. How about the other link, Jared? Because we don't hear anything more about that case. But we're going to go in search of that case. I'll tell you that much. Oh, there might not be another link. Oh, there you go. Now, let's, this is with the Independence Day message from Brian Kammacher at Mass Resistance. It's time to strongly oppose this transgender movement, because he wants us to remember what the 4th of July is really about. So let's look at that picture for a minute. This is targeting young children. These bizarre transgender story times are being held at public libraries all across America. They're being held in libraries in Maine, to California, Texas, Florida, everywhere. Transgender, and they're not even transgenders, because I don't even know what they're drag queens. It's called drag queen story time in most of them. And people, I can't call them parents, but I have to call them people. They're bringing their children. They're bringing their children to the library to sit on the lap of a man dressed up like a woman. A man with an orange wig and a beard and a hairy chest and a dress. They're bringing their children. That's why I can't call them parents, because you are not a parent if you're bringing your children to drag queen story time. You are not a parent. But they're bringing their children here to sit on the laps of these perverted men. These men that are guilty of perversion. Let's go down a little bit, Jared. As Americans celebrate Independence Day by going on picnics, ball games, and beach outings, too many of us tend to forget what today is really all about. 1776, a group of colonists had had enough of being oppressed and decided to take on the greatest military power in the world. It seemed like a hopeless venture, sort of like conservatives view things today. Sort of like many of us think, oh, this is just hopeless. It's only going to get worse and we're going to lose. So it seemed like a hopeless venture to them too. But against all odds, they won and drove the British out of North America. Last week, mass resistance writer Amy Contrada wrote this powerful article that was published in the American Thinker. It encapsulates perfectly the attitude we should be taking. And so he reprinted it. And this is such a good article. And this is exactly how we should be looking at things now. You know, and we're not always going to agree on all of the details because, you know, I don't think that even classifying it again as a mental disorder, that's how the world sees it. We know it to be sin. We know it to be a demonic spirit. And we know it to be a demonic spirit that never comes alone. When I talk about homosexuality as a spirit, I call it legion because it never comes alone. It comes with perversion and anger and pride and hatred and all kinds of devious, lewd, lascivious ways. A lot of times it comes with the spirit of being effeminate as well. So let's read the Opposing the Transgender Movement by Amy Contrada. The transgender war on cultural norms is not just about restrooms and pronouns. And it's not just about marriage either, folks. It's about denying biological fact and quotidian reality. It's about an epidemic of irrationality, a cultural contagion, a mass delusion claiming more victims every day. It's about silencing free thinkers who refuse to bow down and kiss the butt of radical gender ideology. Absurd theories that deny scientific fact have been adopted by the mainstream press, the entertainment industry, the medical establishment, public schools, universities, corporate management, and government agencies. People who fear social isolation and charges of bigotry are just following along. How do those of us still grounded in reality fight this insanity? Not with misguided compassion or compromise, but with straight talk and tough love. Let's not waste our time analyzing or answering absurd gender theories with logical rebuttals. Those ideas, you know, I'm not a big Ben Shapiro fan, but let me tell you this. when somebody stood up when he was talking about the Boy Scouts not allowing girls in, and somebody stood up and said, well, what makes you say, why can't girls be in the Boy Scouts? Well, he didn't get into this big rebuttal about, well, it's not natural, this and that. He said, it's all in the name, Boy Scouts. That's it. There's your answer. Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts. Boy or girl, male or female. It has nothing to do with identity or who you identify as. It's who you are. So how do those of us still grounded in reality fight this insanity? Not with misguided compassion or compromise, but with straight talk, tough love. Let's not waste our time analyzing or answering absurd gender theories or with logical rebuttals. Those ideas don't deserve that respect. The useful idiots who swallow the transgender lies, whether as promoters, allies, or victims, will not listen to reason or science. If you promote sin, you're guilty of that sin. If you call yourself an ally of the LGBT, then you are an enemy of the GOD. Remember that and know that. So how to oppose trans activism. Refuse to go along with their madness. Refuse to go along with the idea that sex is assigned at birth by doctors. Don't fall into that gender identity is inborn. It's internal. Your gender is internal. Has nothing to do with what's between your legs. I guess maybe I was wrong when I tell people, if you don't know what your gender is, go look in the mirror and look in your underwear, because now if it's inborn, I can't say that, right? 3-year-old can know that he's trapped in the wrong body. Refuse to go along with the idea that some girls have penises and some boys have vaginas. Don't buy into that blocking puberty in pre-adolescence children is sound medical practice. Too many pediatricians have already come out and said it's child abuse and it's dangerous. Don't listen to them when they say a man can gestate and birth a baby, because we already know that when they added the new field in the New York Health and Human Services on their computer, a pregnant man. And so the woman that called me and said, David, they've added this new field. It's called a pregnant man. And I'm like, well, what is it? She says, I don't know. She called me back and she says, David, it's a woman who thinks she's a man, but she's pregnant. Well, wouldn't that completely obliterate her whole theory that she identifies as a man if she laid down and let some man put his penis in her vagina to create a baby? Hello? Don't let them tell you that gender stereotypes are bad unless you adopt one as your authentic trans identity. You know, you can't identify as male or female unless you identify as a non-binary female. I met a young lady not long ago who told me she was non-binary. I said, well, what is that? And she said, well, I was assigned the gender of female at birth, and I identify as a female, so I'm non-binary. What? So you were born a female and you know you're a female, so you're a female. That's your gender. Stop letting these people, these fools, these idiots, these teachers, these mental health counselors, stop letting them dupe you into believing this garbage. Don't fall for it when they tell you a person's choice of new name and pronouns must be respected. It doesn't have to be respected. I don't have to respect you. I don't have to respect your religion. I don't have to respect your identity. I don't have to respect anything about you. I have to love God enough to honor you and tell you the truth in love. That's all I have to do. Don't fall for it when they says a person determines his appropriate restroom, locker room, sports team, etc. And know that it's garbage when you hear transgender persons' feelings take precedence over everyone else's. Because that's garbage. Because your thoughts and your feelings mean absolutely nothing to me. It's all I'm concerned with is the hope of your eternal salvation. Recognize only biological sex classifications, male and female. Want to know how we deal with it? We say male or female. We don't get into it. We don't avoid calling someone a he or a him or by their birth name because they will get offended or have their feelings hurt. Well, I want to keep them in my life so I can be a good Christian and witness to them and love on them. Well, you ain't doing nothing for them. You're loving them straight to hell, literally to death. Avoid using the politically loaded word gender. You're a man or you're a woman. It's not your gender. Well, it is your gender, but it's what God said you are. You have no control over that. Even if you get a sexual reassignment surgery, which by default is an oxymoron because you can't reassign your sex. So all that happens there is the men, they go from having an outie to an innie, and the women go from having an innie to an outie. Kind of like the belly buttons that we used to see as growing up. And we see some kids have outies and some kids have innies, and that's what we call them. Well, that's what happens in sexual reassignment surgery. They go from having an outie to an innie, or an innie to an outie, but they're still the man that they were born, or the woman that they were born. Now their insides are put on the outside. That's all. And for males, that's all they do, is they just slice your thing like a banana peel, and then they tuck it in. And there's another horrible fact that a lot of you don't know. A lot of you that are thinking, well, maybe I want to be a woman. I think I really want to be a woman. Well, know this. Your vagina is only going to be as deep as your penis is long. That's truth. That's truth. That's truth. I've known many. And even though they went and had their surgery, they still were having rectal sex, anal sex, because they didn't want that $5,000 or $8,000 piece of artwork to be damaged. Lord have mercy. I laugh to keep from crying. So point out that there is no biological basis for transgenderism. Someone cannot be trapped in the wrong body. We're all in the bodies that we were meant to be in. We're all in the bodies that God placed us in, that he destined us to be in, that he knew we were going to be in from the very spark of creation when life started. He knew us. He knew the plans that he had for us. The enemy knew the plans that he had for us too. That's why we were under attack at such an age. Trust medical professional associations that oppose this anti-science ideology. If you go to massresistance.org, you can look for this article and you can click on all these links. Disseminate reliable research and commentary, and do not affirm a person's self-identification as transgender or genderqueer or non-binary or gender non-conforming or neutrals or agender or two-spirit or cisgender or non-heterosexual or any of that garbage, because that's what it is. It's garbage. Affirmation normalizes this mental disorder. And so let's just say that it is a mental disorder. So how can we as Christians classify it as a mental disorder? Well, you know what? They're possessed, they have demons, they have dark spirits. That pretty much is a mental disorder. And so let's not affirm. Let's go up just a little bit, Jared. So true respect comes from recognizing a trans-identified person's authentic, not costumed, I like how she put that, humanity, because I lived like that. I lived like that. I lived like that. Jared, can we go to the I Belong Amen website, ibelongamen.com? And go to, yeah. I lived like that. Look, I lived like that. That was my costume. That was my costume. I lived the lie. I became a lie. That was my costume. Now let's go back to that article, because here's another one that's in costume. That's why I can't stand the theater. That's why I hate theater so much right now. Because look, here's this man, he's in costume. This man, go down a little bit. This man who claims to be a woman ran for parliament in British Columbia when pro-family activist Bill Whatcott, the one who just recently got arrested for passing out flyers, passed out flyers in the district stating that this man was a man. Bill Whatcott was charged by a human rights tribunal. He was charged with hate speech for telling the truth, and he faces heavy fines and other punishment. Is this where America's heading? That is because California would have it this way. California would have it this way. And when California, I'm telling you, if you're a Christian, you better get out of California. If you value your life and your children's life, you better get out of California. Because once they become separate from the United States, I'm telling you, all hell is going to break loose. And that final boom is coming. And California is going to just slide off into the ocean. They're gone. They're gone. They're going to get the recompense, their reward, for doing a total 360 about face from the Lord Jesus Christ. They're going to do they're going to get what they deserve. If you value your life, you better get the hell out of California. Let's emphasize that people who identify as transgender need psychological counseling to escape their delusion. They need Christian counseling to escape their delusion. Let's show true compassion by encouraging trans-identifying people to accept their natural bodies. It makes me think of the 16-year-old boy who started identifying as a homosexual and thinking maybe he was meant to be transgender because his uncle molested him and told him that he was no good for a woman, that he would never satisfy a woman, only a man. So his uncle body shamed him to make him think that he could never satisfy a woman, that he could only satisfy men by being a boy toy for men, including his pastor uncle. So he was shamed, and he started to believe that lie. But you know what? By encouraging him to accept his natural body and who God created him to be, this boy was set free from that demon, from those demons, from those evil, nasty, detestable, lewd, lascivious spirits that attach themselves to him, because he received STDs, sexually transmitted demons, and he received them from his uncle, who obviously had received them from somebody else because he was just as possessed. That's why he molested his nephew. We have to explain. Oh, wait, hold on. I'm sorry. Help them avoid a lifetime of medical interventions, cross-sex hormone surgeries, cosmetic procedures, counseling, infertility, stress-inducing efforts to pass as the opposite sex, and suicidal thinking and attempts, which really that's out the door nowadays. Because see, when I was in it, when I was growing up in it, it was all about looking real. It wasn't, it wasn't really about being pretty. It was about looking real, about passing. Nowadays, they don't have to pass because they can walk down the street with a wig and a beard and a dress on and identify as anything they want to identify as. They can now even identify as gender fluid. I am nothing. I am no gender. 60-year-old man now is legally now a 6-year-old girl because he identifies as one. So let's explain that there is no such thing as a transgender child. There are children who are confused, because that's what gender dysphoria is. Dysphoria is confusion. We know that our God is not a God of confusion, that he's a God of order. So let's explain that to these children. Let's explain that to them. Let's get that through to them, because they're confused, they're emotionally neglected, and many are abused sexually, verbally, physically, or all of the above. Parents who affirm the people who affirm trans identities in children are themselves confused or needy or just plain stupid or unloving, uncaring, vulnerable to social pressures, or willfully misguided by healthcare professionals, or they just don't give a crap about their child. Many of them are pimping their children out, whether they're pimping them out to the media, to the internet, to these groups, or even physically to the very predators that are preying on them. Let's explain. Oh, we already did that. Let's speak out against the ghoulish medical procedures being inflicted on children, including puberty blockers. To prevent puberty in a healthy young body is medical malpractice. Every doctor who writes a prescription for puberty blockers or hormones for a child his license should be yanked from him, and they should be imprisoned for medical malpractice and child abuse. Halting the development of a child's sexual organs and then adding cross-sex hormones will guarantee sterility. That's what the enemy is after. You know, the enemy knows that he's lost the war, and one of the battles that he's going to try to win is to depopulate. What better way to depopulate than to sterilize all the children? What better way to depopulate than to have everybody, men and women, or just so sterile that you can't produce even if you wanted to, even if you change your mind. There's that little boy now, he's 12. He was 9 years old, and his teacher and his guidance counselor convinced him that he was transgender. And the state said the doctor said we're going to put him on puberty blockers and then hormones. And the mother said, no, not my baby. And the state said, yeah, your baby. So we either put him on hormones and puberty blockers, or we remove him from your home, put him in an LGBT-friendly foster care home, you know, where that little 5-year-old boy was just murdered for wrestling with scars on his genitalia. Put him in a home like that where we're still going to put him on puberty blockers and hormones. And so the mother, eventually she allowed it because she didn't want to lose custody of her child. And so now here we are 3 years later, little boy's 12 years old. He has breasts, and he goes to his mom and says, Mom, I never wanted to be a girl. So now he just had his breasts removed surgically, but he's sterile. He's not even forming or doing anything like puberty-wise. Nothing. So now they're going to have to put him on all kinds of male hormones, which he already naturally had, that they just blocked. That they just destroyed his body and destroyed his ability to procreate. And so now what he needs to do is come to Jesus Christ, because Jesus Christ can heal his body. We know our God is capable and able and ready and willing to do anything as long as we trust in him. We know that he is a faithful God. And I know that he can heal that little boy's body so that he can procreate. We have to oppose. Yeah, it's a violation of child's human rights. Gender clinics for children should all be shut down. In Maine, in Portland, Maine, at the Barbara Bush Hospital in Portland, Maine, they have a wing that is just for transgender children. Just for transgender children. Type in the transgender wing, transgender children wing of the Barbara Bush Hospital. And you know what they recently did? This spring, they lowered the gender clinic. The gender clinic. Lord have mercy. They lowered the age of consent for puberty blockers and hormones to 8 years old. So if your child is 8 years old in Maine, they can make the decision that they're transgender and you have no say. Parents have no say. Parents cannot say anything. Huh?
Right. Coming to a state near you.
Yeah. Yeah, coming to a hospital wing near you. The gender clinic. A lot of people don't even know they have a gender clinic right in their hospital, right in their town, or at a city very close to them. I had no idea that the Barbara Bush Hospital had the gender clinic. Now I know. Can we go back to that to the article?
Mental health evaluation.
Yeah, mental health evaluation, individual therapy, family therapy, psychiatric medication management. Why? Okay, now here you go. If you are meant, if you are really meant to be a little girl and you're a little boy, or a little boy and you were really meant to be a little girl, if transgender is real, then why do you need psychiatric medication management? Why do you need psychiatric medication? Why do you need psychiatric care if it's not a mental disorder? Now, we're going to call it mental disorder for worldly terms, but as Christians, we know that to be possessed, demons, spirits, sin. But why do you need psychiatric evaluation or care if you were meant to be that way, if you were created that way, if you were born that way, if it's normal? If it's not a mental health disorder, why do you need mental health care? It just totally, they're totally in opposition to everything that they say. They contradict themselves. Just the services that are offered to their patients is a contradiction into what they're trying to make these children believe in the school. In the school, they're telling them they're born that way, they're meant to be that way, it's normal, it's not a mental disorder. And then they go to the hospital where they have to have mental health evaluation. There has to be an ongoing consultation between mental health and endocrine providers. Endocrine assessment and monitoring. Menstrual suppression. Stopping those unwanted periods, because we're going to turn your innie into an outie and we don't want you bleeding through your penis. Gender affirming, puberty blockers. Let's stop those, and that's how we're going to stop puberty. So here you go. Connect these dots. Everyone. Puberty blockers, when given to a little boy, do what? Block puberty. When you block puberty, what do you stop? You stop hair growth. You keep the little boy soft and tender. He becomes even more feminine. Now, go look up pedophiles, the characteristics, mannerisms, desires, whatever, of a pedophile. I bet you the number one is smooth, tender, young boys. That connect any dots for you? Does that not show you that this movement, that this whole transgender movement that is within the LGBT movement, that is the LGBT movement, which is within the pedophile movement, which is the pedophile movement, does it not show you that they want your children, they want your little boys, your grandsons and your sons to be on puberty blockers so that they can have their way with them? Do you know that they can bring an LGBT adult activist into your child's or your grandchild's elementary public school? You ain't doing it in no homeschool. You're doing it in the public schools. So you know that they can bring an adult activist that has no degrees or training with children. Their lives are usually a mess, but they can bring them in to meet with your child alone as often as they want. They can bring them in off the street to meet with your child. Do you want your child or your grandchild meeting with a pervert alone? Do you want your child or your grandchild expressing their fantasies, their dreams, their desires, their deepest thoughts to a pervert? Think on that. I say God bless you all, and thanks for joining us today. Peace. I love you.